Welcome to ZOK Universe, my friend, where history comes alive. Discover the past, understand the present, and explore the future. So sit back, take a deep breath, relax, and journey through time with us. Before kings ruled nations, before books told stories, before history had a name, there was sound. The wind through forests, rain against stone, thunder across the sky, and the beating of the human heart. From these first sounds, humanity created something eternal, something that could comfort pain, unite strangers, inspire revolutions, and outlive empires. This is the history of music. And if you enjoy inspiring, life-changing stories and stories about real heroes, then take a moment to subscribe to this channel, because here, every story has a purpose. Let me take you back to the beginning. Long before language, early humans already understood rhythm. They clapped their hands, stamped their feet into the earth, and struck wood against stone. Rhythm was not entertainment. It was communication. It was warning. It was celebration. It was survival. Before humans spoke with words, they spoke with rhythm. Then came a miracle. Someone discovered that air, passing through a hollow bone, could sing. Ancient flutes made from bird bones and mammoth ivory have been found over 40,000 years old. Imagine the scene. Firelight flickering on cave walls, shadows dancing in silence, and the first melody rising into the night. Music had found its voice. As tribes became civilizations, music became sacred. It welcomed newborn children, honored the dead, called communities together, and reached toward the heavens. Drums echoed in ceremonies. Voices rose in prayer. Flutes guided dances beneath the stars. To ancient people, music was not separate from life. It was life. Between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the first great cities emerged. This was Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. There, musicians played harps, lyres, and drums. Temples used music in worship. Royal courts used music in ceremony. Families used music in celebration. Some of the earliest written musical notes in history come from this land. Humanity was beginning to preserve sound forever. Along the Nile River, another civilization rose in splendor, ancient Egypt. Inside temples and palaces, music filled the air. Harps with graceful curves, double flutes, trumpets of bronze, and rhythmic percussion. Paintings inside tombs still show musicians performing. Even in death, the Egyptians believed music should continue. In ancient India, music became something deeper than performance. It became philosophy. It became meditation. Through sacred traditions, systems of melody and rhythm were formed. These ideas became known as raga, the color of melody, and tala, the cycle of rhythm. Music was used to heal emotion, focus the mind, and connect the soul. Far to the east, China built one of the world's oldest musical traditions. There, harmony meant more than pleasant sound. It meant balance in society. Thinkers like Confucius believed music could shape character, calm the mind, and guide a nation. Elegant instruments like the guqin, bells, and bamboo flutes created music of reflection and peace. Then came ancient Greece, where music entered the world of reason. Greek thinkers asked new questions. Why do some sounds feel peaceful, while others create tension? Pythagoras discovered that string lengths could create mathematical harmony. Music was no longer only emotion. It was science. It was education. It was power. And from the Greek word for the muses, we receive the word music. Civilizations had risen, and music had already become sacred, scientific, and eternal. But the greatest transformations were still to come. Empires would fall, churches would sing, and new instruments would change the world forever. The ancient world had sung its first songs, but history was about to change. Empires would rise, civilizations would collapse, and through every storm, music would survive. Now, the next chapter begins. As Greece faded, Rome rose. The Roman Empire stretched across continents, and music marched with it. Trumpets sounded across battlefields, drums kept soldiers in rhythm, and grand festivals filled cities with performance. Music became spectacle. It became discipline. It became empire. But no empire lasts forever. Rome weakened, its borders fractured, its glory faded into history. Cities fell silent. Yet in monasteries, in candlelit halls, voices still rose. When kingdoms collapse, music often remains. Across medieval Europe, churches echoed with sacred song. One voice, then many, slow melodies floating through stone cathedrals. This was the era of chant. No drums, no stage, only voice, devotion, and silence between notes. Music became prayer. For centuries, music lived only in memory. A song existed only while someone remembered it. Then came one of history's greatest breakthroughs. People learned to write music down. Symbols became sound. Lines became melody. Now music could travel beyond one village, beyond one generation, beyond time itself. Outside the church walls, another world of music was alive. Traveling performers moved from town to town. They carried lutes, fiddles, drums, and stories. They sang of heroes, romance, war, and laughter. Where books were rare, musicians became living libraries. Then Europe changed again. Art returned. Science awakened. Ideas exploded. This was the Renaissance. Painters transformed walls into masterpieces, and composers transformed silence into beauty. Music became richer, more elegant, more human. During the Renaissance, composers explored something revolutionary: multiple voices singing different notes together. This was harmony, voices weaving around one another, creating emotional depth no single melody could achieve. Music was becoming architecture of sound. Then another invention changed everything: the printing press. Books could spread knowledge, and sheet music could spread songs. What once belonged only to courts and cathedrals could now reach cities and homes. Music was no longer trapped in one place. It was becoming global. In Italy, artists asked a bold question. What if music could tell a dramatic story? What if emotion, tragedy, love, and betrayal could all be sung? And so, opera was born. Grand costumes, orchestras, stages glowing with candlelight, voices powerful enough to shake the heart. Music had entered theater, and nothing would ever be the same again. From Roman trumpets to cathedral chants to the birth of opera, music had crossed centuries of change. But soon, a new age would arrive, an age of genius, of orchestras, of masters whose names would echo forever. The world had entered a new era. Music was no longer only ritual, or prayer, or traveling entertainment. It was becoming art, science, and greatness. Now came the age of masters. The 17th century arrived with power and grandeur. Palaces grew larger, churches rose higher, and music became more dramatic than ever before. This was the Baroque age. Bold melodies, ornate detail, and emotional intensity. Music no longer whispered, it commanded attention. Among the greatest names of this age stood Johann Sebastian Bach, He transformed notes into architecture. Every melody fit with precision. Every harmony felt eternal. His music was mathematical, yet deeply emotional. Centuries later, the world still studies his brilliance. In Italy, another voice rose. Antonio Vivaldi painted nature with sound. Birdsong in spring, storms in summer, harvest dances in autumn, ice and wind in winter. His masterpiece, The Four Seasons, proved music could create pictures in the mind. Then came George Frederick Handel. His music filled royal halls and grand ceremonies. When audiences heard Messiah, many rose to their feet in awe. Music had become majestic. As instruments evolved, a new force was born: the orchestra. Strings, woodwinds, brass, percussion. Together they could whisper like a breeze or roar like thunder. For the first time, music could contain an entire universe of sound. Then came a shift. After the rich complexity of Baroque music, composers sought balance, clarity, elegance. This was the classical era. Order replaced excess. Beauty lived in simplicity. The world was ready for a miracle. That miracle was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. As a child, he amazed kings and queens. He composed with effortless brilliance, music flowing as naturally as breath. Joy, sorrow, humor, grace. Mozart could express the full range of human feeling. Though his life was short, his legacy became immortal. Then history met a titan, Ludwig van Beethoven. He was fierce, emotional, revolutionary. But tragedy struck. The composer began losing his hearing. For a musician, it was devastating. Yet Beethoven refused to surrender. In silence, he created some of the greatest music ever written. He proved that limitations can become greatness. After Beethoven, the doors burst open. Music became more emotional, more personal, more passionate. This was the Romantic era. Composers poured heartbreak into pianos, dreams into violins, and storms into symphonies. Music was no longer just heard, it was felt. The age of masters had changed the world. But beyond concert halls, another revolution was coming. Songs of workers, songs of struggle, songs born from pain and freedom. Soon, the sound of ordinary people would reshape music forever. The great composers had shaken concert halls, but history was turning again. Now, the next revolution would not begin in palaces or royal courts. It would rise from streets, churches, farms, clubs, and communities. The voice of everyday people was about to change music forever. Long before fame, ordinary people carried music in their daily lives. Farmers sang while they worked. Mothers sang lullabies to children. Travelers sang stories on the road. These songs were simple but powerful. They preserved memory, identity, and culture. Across Africa, music lived in community, movement, and rhythm. Drums spoke across distances. Voices answered in call and response. Dance and song became one language. These traditions would later shape the future of global music. The heartbeat of rhythm would travel the world. In America, songs of suffering and hope were born. Spirituals carried faith, resilience, and coded messages of freedom. Then came the blues. A guitar, a voice, a story of pain. Heartbreak became melody, struggle became song, and from the blues, modern music would rise. In New Orleans, cultures met, rhythms blended, and freedom entered sound. Jazz was born. Improvisation, spontaneity, confidence. Artists like Louis Armstrong transformed music with brilliance and personality. Jazz taught the world that music could be alive in the moment. Then technology changed everything. Music no longer disappeared after performance. Records captured voices. Radio carried songs into homes. Families gathered around speakers, hearing artists from far away. For the first time, music became truly global. Then came electricity. Guitars grew louder, drums hit harder. Young people demanded something new. Rock and roll exploded. Artists like Elvis Presley became symbols of a changing generation. Music was now rebellion, energy, identity. The modern age created superstars. The Beatles reshaped popular culture. Michael Jackson turned performance into global spectacle. Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, and many others gave voice to dignity, love, and change. Music now moved fashion, politics, dreams, and identity. In city streets, a new voice rose. Hip-hop transformed rhythm and language into power. Words became storytelling. Beats became culture. Then came the internet. Streaming replaced shelves of records. Anyone with talent could reach the world. Now music lives in phones, clouds, and algorithms. But one truth remains: music still belongs to the human heart. From a bone flute in ancient darkness to billions of songs played instantly across the planet, music has walked beside humanity through every age. It comforted grief, celebrated love, inspired courage, and united strangers. Empires fell, borders changed, languages disappeared, but music remained. And as long as hearts beat, voices rise, and dreams are born, the story of music will never end. If this journey inspired you, like this video, subscribe, and join ZOK Universe for more powerful stories through history. Because every song you hear today is an echo of thousands of years.